what is happening? I am talking about a monopole. That is, north is single, south is single. But in nature, this never happens. If north is there, south is there. If north is not there, south is not there. Okay, they are always together. So that means this says that a monopole do not exist in nature. So that is why when you apply Gauss law to the magnetic field, right hand side becomes zero. That is, B is the magnetic field produced by the monopole. If monopole do not exist, naturally the value of right hand side is zero. Okay, that is why this is called as Gauss law for magnetostatics, and this is called Gauss law for electrostatics. Okay, so if I continue in the integral form, what is this? So you can see here, this is a closed double integral. It is the closed surface. It is, so this circle always shows you a closed circle, closed surface. Okay, and double integral it is. Double integral means what? One integral is for one coordinate, let us say x. Another one is for the second coordinate y, such that ds is defined. So how you define ds? Ds equal to dx into dy, or dy into dz, or dz into dx. It can be anything. Okay. So now this ds, it should be collinear with b. So collinear means what? The direction of the normal drawn to ds should coincide with the direction of the magnetic field, induced magnetic field, or whatever it is, B. It's a magnetic field. So if the direction of the area element and the magnetic field, they are collinear, that means in the same direction, they are collinear vector there, both are pointing in the same direction. So then naturally the value of this is 0, and because the value I have defined here is 0. That is that, in what does it say? That if I form an area ds, area element ds, go on adding all ds's, it will form a closed surface. Okay, so then in that closed surface, let us say this is the closed surface, here he has shown that is a closed surface. So in this one you keep a pole, let us say north pole you keep, and try to measure what is the magnetic field outside. Okay, so what does it show? Right hand side, it shows 0. That means you cannot measure the magnetic field outside the closed surface. So here he has shown here a solid 3-dimensional rectangle in shape. You can take it as a sphere. Okay, it should be symmetric. Okay, so here B is 0, I mean B dot ds is 0. What is B here? The net magnetic field which is found outside the closed surface is 0. Why I am talking about closed surface? Because I am talking about the Gauss law. So Gauss law always talks about closed surface. Within the closed surface, if you keep the electric charge, then this is a Gauss law for electric field, and this is electrostatics or electric field, and this is the Gauss law for the magnetic field. So this is the differential form, and this is the integral form. So now we will come to Faraday's law. So I have shown you Faraday's law. You might be remembering the slide I have shown you. So I was moving a bar magnet up or down inside a loop, closed loop, which was producing current. Okay. So this is differential form. Right hand side it is showing it is 0. So del cross E. So if you take del as one dimension, that is only x is there. So this will be what? I dou by dou x. So then I'll take, let us say this also one dimension. This is simply Ix, IEx, that is the x component of E. So then dou by dou x of Ex, that gives you the first part. Okay. So similarly, if I take one dimension for B, this will be Bx. So you can see here, Bx is changing as a function of time here. Fine. So sum of variation in the electric field and sum of the direction change in the magnetic field, net change is 0. That means the change in electric field is negative of change in the magnetic field. Okay. So net result is 0 here. Okay. So same thing is written here. You can see here, he has shown here, this is direction of E. The charge is moving here. and this whole is the area element, dl is the length element. You can see ds has got the direction, so he has shown ds as a vector here. And what is n here? It's a unit vector along the direction of ds. Okay, so vector ds equals to n times magnitude of ds. Okay, this is a loop, so this acts just like a dipole. Okay, so similarly in the integral form you can write E dl, that is equal to, in a closed loop, that is for this, it is E dl net change in electric field. So that is related with the net change in the magnetic field. So magnetic field change means you are inserting the bar magnet inside this loop as a function of time, that gives you net change in the magnetic flux or magnetic field. Okay, the linkage is with respect to the loop. Thereby, that is why I am taking a double integral. A double integral is nothing but a closed integral it is here. So because it's a closed surface, so ds is closed, I am taking here a closed or a double integral it is. Okay, so this is about the Faraday's law in the differential form and the integral form. You see here change in electric field, that is first part, and this is change in the magnetic field. The linkage of the magnetic flux is given by second factor, and change in the electric field is given by the first, and they are opposite of each other. Okay, so that is about the Faraday's law. So I am using these equations often, so that's why I thought of giving you the inference from those things. Okay, so now with this I am going to the next slide. So this is actually the syllabus now. It starts from here, yesterday's class. So it's a vector calculus or a vector system or a Cartesian system compared with a vector system here. So you can see here a Cartesian coordinate system. It has got three coordinates. One is x, another is y, and another is z. So that a vector A, this is my vector. Okay. So vector A can be written as, take the perpendicular projection of vector, this pointer with respect to x axis, that is ix. With respect to yx, take the projection, it is jy. With respect to, take mirror image of this, then take projection with respect to z, then that is kz. Okay, these are the components along x, y, z. You add together, that will give you the net value of the vector. So you can see here A is a vector, it has got magnitude as well as direction. Okay, so you can see here this angle between with respect to the Cartesian axis that defines the direction, and magnitude is given by taking magnitude of this. Okay, so how you will take magnitude? So you take A dot A. Okay, so from that, or you take A, divide it by magnitude of A, that can give you the null vector or a unit vector along A. Okay, you can use that to calculate the magnitude. So in that way also you can do it. Okay, so now this is 3 dimension. Why? Because 3 axes are there. So all are vector axis. So if I am not using ijk, then only this will give you the magnitude. If I use along with ijk, it is a vector. This is x vector, this is a y vector, this is a z vector. So I can write this as x on the top arrow mark plus y arrow mark, z arrow mark. So this whole thing is represented as a vector. So naturally the addition results into the vector A, that is shown by this arrow mark. So coming to the next dimension, I am adding one more axis. So let us say I will call one more axis as B. Some alphabet I have taken, and the identity vector along with this I have taken it as n cap. So along x it is I cap, j cap, k cap, along this it is n cap. So if I use the same notation here in 4 dimensions, so how can I write? So I can write this as ix plus jy plus kz plus nb. So if I absorb I inside x, then this will simply vector x. This is simply vector y. This is simply vector z. This is simply vector v. So then naturally A will become vector x plus vector y plus vector z plus vector v. So that is a 4-dimensional vector. So this slide introduces the concept of 4 vectors. Okay, 4-dimensional space it is, 4 vectors. Fine. So now I will pass to the next slide. So now you see, inclusively I am using the word 4 vector. There in the earlier slide I didn't use 4 vector. Purposefully I didn't use, because I wanted to introduce 4-dimensional space concept. So now I am using the concept of 4 vector. So what is the 4 vector now? So this is a vector represented in 4D space. So what is a 4D space? 4-dimensional space having 4 axes, x, y, z, and one more axis. There I took it as v, but here I am taking it as t. So t is the time. So x, y, z, they are the Cartesian coordinates. They will help you to locate the position of the particle which is moving. So a particle may be a particle, or it may be a person, it may be an object, it may be anything. Only x, y, z is used to locate the position. And what is this axis is used? This axis is used to locate the position of a particle as a function of time. As the clock runs, where is the particle found? So let us say a particle is following this trajectory. Okay. So you can see here, it is having an x component at some value of time here. So you take an intersection at this point and take a horizontal line drawn and take intersection on the y-axis. So I mean the t-axis. So that gives you the time, that is the reading of the clock when the particle is found at this position. So similarly, as it changes its position, you can find out the time. So as if a clock is running along the object as it moves. So now you can find out what is the total effect. So in the 4-dimensional space. So change along x-axis is Ix. Okay, actually it is I cap x, and this is j cap y, k cap z, and n cap t it is. Okay, it is a 4-dimensional space. So Ix is my vector x, jy is my vector y, and kz is my vector z, nt is my vector t. Okay, these 4 vectors added together gives you a new notation. So this is a raised to the power mu. Okay, so this notation is used for a vector representation in which space? 4-dimensional space. Okay, so A is called as 4 vector and it is denoted as A mu. So don't pronounce it as A to the power mu. So it is called A mu. So what is A mu? A mu is a 4 vector. Okay, so with this notation now, let us move to the next slide. So now purposefully I have drawn only x-axis. Okay, so y and z are also there. I have not shown it. Only I am showing the x-axis. So you can see here, x-axis in the beginning it is taking this position when time is 0. Okay, so as time changes, x has changed to x dash. It has rotated, and y has changed. Sorry, t has changed to t dash. So what is the rotation angle? I am introducing phi. Okay, so what is the vector I am writing here? It is a 4-dimensional space. So now I am using the word Minkowski space for 4-dimensional space. It is the space divided by Minkowski, so called as Minkowski space. So what is the notation I am using? A mu. And what are the coordinates required to locate A mu? This is A mu now. Earlier we used to call this as A, but now it is A mu. From this point to this point, it is A mu. Okay, so A mu, it depends upon 2 coordinates. One is x coordinate, another is the time coordinate. So I am writing here x coordinate, comma t. So if I am writing in this way, then it is understood that y is 0, z is 0. I am not showing variation of y and z. That means I am only observing the variation along x as a function of time. Okay, so that's why I have shown here the point as 1. Okay, some event is occurring. So the event, let us say I may be standing here or let us say a photon is there, or a vehicle is there, some event is there, or you may be standing at point 1. Okay, so how to find out its position in the original axis? Original axis is x and t. So draw the perpendicular along x axis, draw the perpendicular from the y axis. So that determines the position of 1 in the original axis. So you can find out the position with respect to the rotation axis. So what is the rotation axis? So one is t dash, another is x dash. Okay. So now you can draw perpendicular for x dash, and similarly you can draw perpendicular for t dash. So now see, unknowingly we have introduced the concept. What is the concept? So I cannot reach t dash from point 1, isn't it? So to reach point 1, what I should do? I should extract or extend this axis backwards. Okay, extrapolate in the negative direction. So if you are drawing in the negative direction, then you can see the direction has changed. So direction has changed means it is a negative time axis. So negative time axis means what? It is past. Okay. So that means if I am observing 1 with respect to x dash and t dash, so these positions measure the past position of event 1. Future, if I want to measure, then how I should measure? I should measure with respect to t dash. If I measure with respect to the negative axis, it gives the past. Negative axis always talks about the past. So that means I can make x also negative. So how to make negative? You can extrapolate in the negative direction. This is the negative x-axis. So same x dash and t dash you can show in a negative way. This is minus x dash, this is minus t dash. Okay. So that is the next concept I am connecting Minkowski space in the negative time scale and negative dimension scale. Okay. So this is what I taught you in the earlier class. This is the Minkowski space velocity dependency. So just now I was talking about negative x scale, that is this one, fine, and negative time scale, that is this one, positive x scale and positive time scale here. So now you see, if I make y and z 0, only two coordinates are required to explain the trajectory of a point. So let us take photon is my object. Photon, it is moving. So now you draw a cone. This is the cone drawn by Minkowski. So this is for photon, light. So that is why this is called light cone. So light cone means what? This is the trajectory followed by photon when x is positive, t is positive. Okay. So this is the trajectory followed by the photon. If x is negative, t is positive. Okay. Come back in the negative direction. If x is positive, t is negative, this is the trajectory followed by photon. Similarly, both are negative. This is the trajectory. So this will form a cone, and here this is called form a cone. So this cone always talks about forward movement. So that is why this is called future cone. That means moving forward and forward. Future it is. And this is receding, going back. So this is called past. Okay. So don't go to the literary meaning of future and past. Okay. Astrological meaning. It is not that. Okay. So this is physical meaning. Future means forward. Past means backward. Okay. So this is called future cone. This is called past cone. These both are called light cone. So why it is called light cone? Because this is the cone formed by the locus of the photon. So the boundary is the locus of photon. So this is a cone formed by the locus of photon. So photon travels with velocity of light. So V is equal to c. So any particle which is traveling with velocity of light, they will fall on this boundary. Okay, that is significance of the boundary of the light cone. Okay. So if there is a particle which is traveling with velocity less than velocity of light, for example myself or yourself, so you cannot run with a velocity of light. Your velocity is limited. Then where your trajectory will fall? Your trajectory will fall in this cone. For example, I am here. So you can see here, sorry. So I am here. So you can draw a line from here and you draw a line here. Your position is here. So if you draw locus of your motion, so you may follow this path, you may follow this path, you may follow this path, or at the maximum you can come this side, but you cannot go away from this cone. Your locus point, loci. Loci is what? Plural of locus. Your loci will fall within this cone. Okay. So that is why all the particle, all the elements, all the objects, okay, which are moving with velocity less than velocity of light, they occupy this cone as a function of time. You can show their position here. Okay. So similarly, if there is a particle moving with velocity greater than velocity of light, so you can see here you have crossed this boundary. That means you have crossed the velocity of light. Then where its locus will fall, it may follow this path, it may follow this path, it may follow this path. You can see here, even in negative side also you can show, this will form another cone with a bigger vertex angle. Okay. Similarly, back direction also you can form a bigger vertex. Okay. So that means past cone, uh, the cones formed for the particles with velocity greater than c never coincides with the cone formed with the particles with velocity less than c. Okay. So this is the significance of Minkowski space and representation of the vector. This is a vector. So this is the vector associated with the photon. Okay. So vector, you can draw a vector point here. I have not drawn it. You can draw it. Okay. So this is the trajectory followed by the photon. Photon never crosses this boundary, enters inside. Okay. This is the boundary. It cannot cross this boundary, photon. Okay. So coming to the next set of that is the representation. So what are the different operators you are using? So that is given here. So oftenly three-dimensional calculus, I am using del operator. Just now I talked about it. So what is that? I dou by dou x, j dou by dou y, so k dou by dou z it is. So one dimension, only one part. Two dimensions, only two parts. Three dimension, all three will be there. So if we are going to a fourth dimension, so how to write the operator? So it is shown by a square. So it is called D'Alembert operator. This might have been taught in classical mechanics. D'Alembert operator. Okay. So here it is shown it as dou nu. Here it is used as a subscript. Here it is used as a superscript. So I'll explain this. So this is given by del square is already there here. So del dot del, that is del square. Okay, del square is also written as a Laplacian operator. So you can see here the triangle is inverted here. So here base is up, here base is down, inverted. So what is a Laplacian operator? It is del square. So that means here you can write a Laplacian operator here. Okay. So a Laplacian operator minus 1 by c square dou square by dou t square, that is a D'Alembert operator. So you see here this is a 4 vector. Okay. So here this is called covariant 4 vector. This is called contravariant 4 vector. So covariant vector, it gives a positive contribution to a vector. A contravariant vector, it gives a negative contribution to a vector. So basis vectors are such that it reduces the dimension of a vector, then we call it as a contravariant vector. So if it gives a positive contribution, the total gets added up, then it gives a covariant vector. So a contravariant vector is actually negative of a covariant vector. Here negative sign is not shown. Okay. So dou v, right here, dou to the power nu, this is dou subscript nu. Anyhow, dou nu, this is covariant, this is contravariant. So these are the different types of operators used in the further vector calculus. So I think we have engaged a very long class. So today I'll stop here. So you go through all these slides. I'll share the slides. You go through the slides. Fine. So in next class, with the concept of covariant and contravariant vectors, so I am going to the next part of the formalism, that is electromagnetic field tensor. So there I need the concept of covariant and contravariant vectors there. So what is the electromagnetic field tensor? How to find out the components of electromagnetic field tensor? So that is taken in the next class. Okay. So if you have got any doubt, so you can ask me. So otherwise I'll stop the class. Any doubt is there? Yes. You want to ask any doubt? Hello? Any doubt is there? So I'm ending the
No,
meeting.
ma'am.
Okay. So you go through the
Yes,
slides
ma'am.
and share it.
Okay, ma'am.
Actually, I'm preparing slide one by one daily. It takes a lot of time. Okay. So I have prepared around 16 slides in 2 days. So I'll try to introduce the other slides also. In next class, I will teach you electromagnetic field tensor. So I think I have taught you tensor concept. So tensor is a vector actually, but actually what happens, it is represented in form of matrix. So you know in a matrix there are various elements are there. So whenever you write a matrix, what you will do, you will be writing the elements of a matrix as some alphabets or some numbers. Okay, it is fixed. The value, you can add the column, subtract the column, you can do some plus and minus, and you can change the dimension of the matrix. That is matrix operation. But what is the difference between a matrix and a tensor is that tensor is also can be represented in form of a matrix, but each element, it is not independent. So the value of each element in the matrix of a tensor, it is decided by some laws. For example, here is a law. So what is the law here? Dou nu covariant, dou nu contravariant. This is a law. Okay. So let us say I am using this law and nu I am varying. Let us say 1 to 3. So then I will be producing 9 elements in a 3 by 3 matrix. So I'll teach you in next class. Here you cannot understand that. So the 9 elements which are produced using this law, their value is fixed. You cannot change it. So if you want to change the value, then you have to make change here in the law itself. Then only you can change the element. Otherwise you cannot change the element. Okay. So that is why so tensor is different from matrix, but it can be represented in the matrix format. That is a convenient way to represent it. So Minkowski phase transformation can be shown in terms of electromagnetic field vectors. Okay, how electric field varies, how magnetic field varies in a Minkowski space can be shown in an electromagnetic field tensor. So that I will take a separate class. That is next class I will teach. Okay. So I'll stop the class, ending the meeting here. Okay.